Hello, I am author Eileen Schnabel, and we are going to walk and talk about the Battle of Saratoga. By the time you finish, if you listen to all of this, you'll know more about American history than probably 90% of Americans. So, Battle of Saratoga, key battle. And why is that? Because we desperately needed help. The colonists needed help, specifically money and ships and arms. And France was who we wanted to have help us. Now, France wasn't necessarily a fan of democracy. Their idea was more the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And of course, the whole democratic movement wasn't going to work out so good for old King Louis in a few years. But I digress. Anyway, we need the help from France, but they're not going to help a lost cause. So the Battle of Saratoga, famous battle where General John Burgoyne, a British general, loses and hands over essentially 5,000 soldiers, unheard of, and one of the biggest American victories ever, and enough to convince the the French that we may win. So they come in and start to help us. So how did the battle sort of come about? And it is as follows. General John Burgoyne has this idea. He is going to divide the colonies. At the time, they thought the northern colonies would be a lot harder to crush. And if they could conquer the north, then the south was going to be pretty easy. So his idea was he was going to march down from Canada. General St. Leger was going to come in from the west, and General Howe was going to come up from the south. They were all going to meet essentially around Albany and cut the colonies in half. Well, things went south for General Burgoyne. On his march down from Canada, the Americans made things very difficult, which meant his supply lines were getting stretched enormously. He tries to resupply at a place that Bennington, where it turns out he thought he was just going to be able to send his soldiers and scoop up a bunch of horses and supplies and things. But the American militia meets him, and he comes back with fewer soldiers after that debacle. Meanwhile, the St. Leger, if you remember, was supposed to come in and help him from the west. St. Leger is stopped at the Battle of Oriskany, which, interestingly, the credit for that goes to famous traitor/hero Benedict Arnold. Another story to be told later. Howe was supposed to come up from the south, but gets diverted and decides he's not going to meet General Burgoyne. So there are two battles. There's the first Battle of Saratoga, which is called the Battle of Freeman's Farm, and the British technically win the field, but lose more soldiers, so it's a wash at best. And then there's the second Battle of Saratoga, which is called the Battle of Freeman's Farm, which is the one where Burgoyne finally surrenders. That's a little bit of history. You could learn a lot more by reading Kep Westgard, The Great Escape, or you could read any other historic books. But it is, if you're going to pick a battle and learn about history, pick the Battle of Saratoga. Wishing you a great day and signing off from the woods. This is Eileen Schnabel, author of the Kep Westgard Time Travel to the American Revolution series. Thanks for letting me share.